Hey, what's cracking? So I'm back. A little better scenery this time. I wanted to go back and clarify some things and explain things about how you get certified as an adult and what all that entails. So, in the state of Oklahoma, if you, at the time of my crime, you had to be 16 years old to be instantly considered adult in the state of Oklahoma in a murder case. Originally, we were charged with first degree murder and armed robbery. And I was 15. I just turned 15 in November, and it was March. Kenneth was 14, and David was 16. Um, since me and Kenneth were only 15 and 14, we went to the Berry House, and like I explained in the last video, so we went before a judge, and on the third day I was in there, when I finally came out of my cell, it was because they took me down to see these people, psychiatrists, people who would decide if I was old enough, mature enough in my mind to be held accountable as an adult for my actions. So they did things like an ink blot test, an IQ test. And an IQ test, all it is, for those that don't really realize what it is in your life, according to your age, you should have come across certain kinds of information. And at my age, it was who invented electricity, who invented the light bulb, things like that. And like I said, I was pretty good in school, mostly A's. So my lawyer, she had never had a adult case. Um, she had been an insurance lawyer. I was her first criminal case, let alone a juvenile case. The DA prosecuting the case, it was her last juvenile case. She was being promoted, and she wanted to make an example of us three. So originally, she wanted to give us life without parole for the murder and life for the armed robbery. The reason that didn't happen is because she went to the wife of the man who was killed, and she said that she believed it was an accident. She didn't want us to spend the rest of our life in prison. She wanted us to learn our lesson and then get out and get another chance. But if we messed up again, she wanted them to lock us away from now on. And so because of that, we did get another chance, but we had a lot of paper time. So when we ended up being sentenced, David turned state's evidence. He got 5 in and 5 out. He went from the county jail to Lexington Assessment Reception. He went from there to a minimum and on to a work center. And I believe he was out within a year or so. He had 5 in and 5 out to do a 10-year sentence. Kenneth was the one who pulled the trigger, even though it wasn't on purpose. And he got 50 years with 12 suspended. I got 34 years with 12 suspended, so 22 in, 12 out. Kenneth had 38 in and 12 out, but he beat me home over a year. There was a few reasons for that. I pled guilty on my case to a lesser sentence, and it was reduced to second-degree murder in concert with 2 others. You can verify all this. All you have to do is Google Ricky Dye, McLeod, Oklahoma, and I'll be the first thing you see. Just keep in mind that everything you read in the news isn't always true. And I've got the case behind me. I'm not on paper time now. I finished my sentence. There's nothing over me anymore to keep me from telling you the truth. So I will tell you the truth. Uh, I was a lot slimmer than Kenneth. People found me more attractive in prison. Kenneth, when he was young, had a hard time growing when he was around 13 or 14, so they put him on steroids. And this caused him to have he was more muscular and looked more like a man. He had hair on his face. And I didn't have any of those things. Um, so whenever it come time for the certification and every other step of this process, Kenneth's family had money. David's family had a little money, and they hired attorneys. But I was stuck with a court-appointed attorney. And like I said, it was her first criminal case, first juvenile case. So what she did was she told me if I would allow her to represent me. Her father was a Vietnam POW of war. He lost he was tortured. He was blinded by the torture. Now he was a judge over the state Supreme Court of Appeals of Oklahoma. And her mother was the head of DHS. And as a favor to them, a man named John Coyle took my case. and then my lawyer, Susan Bussey, she just learned from him. So John Coyle, he was a blessing, another answer to my mother's prayers, my grandmother's prayers, and he cost $20,000 up front, $20,000 more if it went to trial, but he represented me for free. You know, if it hadn't been for that, I probably would have had a lot more time. But in the state of Oklahoma, when a felony is committed, in the process of a felony, if someone dies, you're all guilty of murder. That means that even though David never went in a store, never held a gun, he drove up to the store with us, he drove off with the store with us, and that made him guilty of murder. And I was guilty of murder just as if I'd pulled the trigger. Say you and I, we pull up to a gas station to get gas. You're pumping the gas. I tell you I'm going to go in and pay for it. You have no idea I have a pistol on me. I go in and I rob the man and I shoot and kill him. I come back out in a rush, tell you, come on, let's go. And you're scared and you drive off with me. You are as guilty of murder as if you'd take turns shooting. That's how it is, the state of Oklahoma. I have a friend who in prison, he'll never get out. He was a couple years older than me when the crime was committed. Him and his friend, they went in to rob a house and they didn't know anyone was there. It was all dark and there was an older woman home, an elderly woman, and she hit his friend in the head with a frying pan and killed him. He ran away, but his friend was killed. They were in the commission of a felony, so he got life without parole. He'll never go home. So in a lot of ways, I'm lucky. They came to me first, wanted me to file turn state's evidence when I was in the Berry House because I was the youngest offender in the crime that did not pull the trigger. At the time, I didn't know what a rat was. Didn't say no because I didn't want to be a rat. My family wanted me to do it. They said they'd do it to you, and I didn't know what a rat was, but I just knew that I felt that I was as guilty as Kenneth. Me and him, we kept daring each other. Every time one of us would back out, the other one would call him a pussy. So we just kept it up until we ended up making the biggest mistake of our life. And I felt that I was just as guilty as he was. And so I wasn't going to turn on him and get him wiped out for the rest of his life for something I felt like I was just as big a part of. So, so they did certify me. Once you're certified as an adult, they use everything the psychiatrist, everything from the ink blot test, your IQ. Kenneth's lawyer and David's lawyer told them to play dumb. My lawyer never had a case, and she told me to do as good as I could. And shit, I went there thinking my life was on the line. 3 days after the crime, I had an IQ of 147, perfect ink blot test, perfect reality perception. Said you could put me in a room with 50 people. In a couple hours, I could tell you who all I could trust. Bullshit, right? 15-year-old kid, but they were just proving that there's no way I went into that store, didn't realize what was happening. But I didn't realize anyone was going to get killed. No one did because it wasn't planned. Once I was certified as an adult, I was sent to the county jail. My lawyers kept me there around a year and a half, hoping to let me grow up a little. So if I did go to prison, I would be a little bigger, but also trying to get me reversed to a juvenile. Had I been reversed to a juvenile, I would have went to Raider in Sand Springs and Tulsa, and I would have been released when I was 18 years old. But the DA said that if they put me in a juvenile center, I would find the line and I would walk on it. I was too intelligent, and that when they let me out, I'd be a worse criminal than I was, which the truth is. I went to church all my life. As soon as it happened, I realized how wrong it was. And had they let me go, it never would have happened again anyway. But they did teach me my lesson. Unfortunately, prison is not about rehabilitation. Prison about retribution and revenge. We don't fix people, we make them worse. So when I was in the county jail, I had a chance to be reversed by the state Supreme Court. There were 5 judges who had the decision on that. It was tied 2-2 to reverse me or send me on. And the 5th judge just went with whatever this other judge said, and they had voted to certify me. So I was certified, pled guilty to second-degree murder, and was sentenced to 34 years with 12 suspended, 22 in and 12 out. When I took the deal, my lawyer told me that I'll be out in 2 years. And 17 and a half years later, I got to go home. So the next year I'll get on to the county jail. I wanted to explain how all that went, how I ended up being an adult, and what exactly happens. how you end up in prison for murder even though you didn't have a gun. And I shouldn't have been there. What I did was wrong. I accept that. And I've paid for it in blood and in tears. And hopefully, these videos will help a parent or a kid so maybe it doesn't happen to them. See you guys in the next one. Peace.